Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Are they finished, Jeff?
Yeah, they should all be here in a sec.
Okay, I think we can call the meeting to order and do a roll call.
Great, thank you. When I call your jurisdiction, please state your name. San Mateo County.
Dave Pine,
Thank you. San Mateo County. Atherton,
Rick DeGolia,
Belmont,
Julia Mates,
Brisbane, Burlingame,
Donna Colson,
Colma, Daly City,
Rod Dust-Megwa,
East Palo Alto, Foster City,
Good evening, Sam Hindy.
Half Moon Bay,
Harvey Warbeck,
Hillsborough,
Larry May,
Los Banos,
Tom Faria,
Menlo Park,
Betsy Nash,
Millbrae.
Hi, Ruben Holliver, alternate.
Thank you. Pacifica,
Tiger Jazz Big Stick.
Portola Valley,
Jeff Alfs.
Redwood City, San Bruno, San Carlos,
Laura Palmer Lohan,
San Mateo,
Rick Bonilla,
South San Francisco, and Woodside. Director Emeritus, Director Emeritus.
John Keener.
Okay, and we have a quorum.
okay, great. And is there any public comment? If anyone has public comment, they can raise their hand through the reactions tab at the bottom of your screen. I don't see any public comment. So assuming there's none, we will move on. Can I get a motion to set the agenda and approve the consent items?
so moved, Mates,
Second by Pine.
Okay, so that's a motion by Julia Mates and a second by Dave Pine. And we do a roll call, please.
Yes, San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County, Atherton,
Yes,
Belmont,
yes,
Brisbane, Burlingame,
yes,
Colma, Daly City,
yes,
East Palo Alto, Foster City,
Abstain from the minutes, say yes on the remainder.
Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
yes,
Los Banos,
yes,
Menlo Park,
yes,
Millbrae,
Yes.
Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley,
Yes.
Redwood City, San Bruno, San Carlos,
yes,
San Mateo,
yes,
South San Francisco, and Woodside. Okay, the motion passes.
okay, thank you, Nellie. So the next item on the agenda is the chair report. I don't have anything meaningful to report. Many of you probably got an email, some of you from me and some of you from Dave Pine, and maybe many of you from both of us, that somebody seems to have hacked the PCE board email list. I haven't experienced any problems other than that. And I don't think Dave has. And our IT group is looking into it. Just please, when you get an email that says something that's a little odd, make sure you look at who the sender is, which to my knowledge, everybody did, and nobody had a problem with it, but it came out and it could come out again. The only other thing, we are moving forward to find a search firm to do the COO search for us, which Jan may address in her report. And we'll get back to you as that moves forward. And the only other thing is that next month, we are going to create a nominating committee, as we do every year, for nominations for members of the executive committee, chair and vice chair. So please think about whether you'd like to participate in that. And next month we'll take all of you that are interested in being on that committee will fill that committee. That's all I have. Next item is the CEO report.
Thank you. And nice to see everyone here tonight. If we can go to the next slide, please. So I wanted to let everyone know that Sandra Bonetti started on November 1st as our Associate Manager for Community Relations in Los Banos, and she's doing a fantastic job. One of the things we wanted to do was to have meetings with all of the council members in Los Banos, because there are 2 new council members since they made the decision to join PCE, and she was able to make it happen. So we're very happy with that. She knows everyone in town, and she'll be a great asset to us there in Los Banos. We have 2 new employees starting right after Thanksgiving. Blake Hershaft is going to be our building electrification programs manager on Raphael's team. And Masha Dubrovskaya is going to be our account services specialist on Leslie's team. So we're excited to have them join us, and hopefully you'll meet them next month. Next slide, please. So as Rick noted, we are starting the recruitment for a chief operating officer. We're in the process of interviewing a number of search firms, and especially those who have experience in the energy field. So hopefully we will get the search firm lined up shortly after Thanksgiving and get started on it. And interestingly, one of the firms that I interviewed earlier this week said that this is actually a good time to recruit. Usually it's not, but everyone's home and it's easier to get interviews scheduled. And at the end of the year, people are sometimes thinking about changing jobs. So they think that this is going to be good for us. So we're looking forward to that. Next slide, please. I wanted to just update you. We updated the executive committee on this earlier, that we had originally expected to be bringing to the board details about the long duration storage project that we're doing through CC Power, but the approval process has been pushed back by 1 month while we're still negotiating an outstanding item in the energy storage supply agreement, basically the PPA for the energy storage. And so we want to make sure that everything's done, all of the agreements are finalized before we bring that to you. So everything's been pushed back a month, so you can look forward to hearing about that in December. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to give you a reach code update. This is also in my written report. The new updates are that Half Moon Bay met on Monday to discuss reach codes, and they had a robust discussion, and they'll be bringing back a code that includes reach codes for new construction and some electrification for remodels. And happy to report that Atherton and Belmont are now starting down the road to look at reach codes and to bring those to their councils soon. Next slide, please. So Medi always puts these graphs together for us. I didn't get them into the written report, so I'll just go through those with you tonight. So the first slide shows our monthly load, and this compares the load each month to the previous year. And so the lines on the far right are the most recent months, 10 being October, 9 being September, 8 being August. And basically it shows that we had a decrease in load this year for these 3 months of August, September, and October. It was 6% less. And it's basically because last year our load was very high, higher than expected due to the heat waves and the fire and the smoke. And we didn't experience that this year, thankfully. So our load was was lower than we had expected. Next slide, please. This shows the monthly load changes by customer class, with red indicating that it's gone down and blue that it's gone up. And if we look at just the last 3 months here, again, month 8, 9, and 10, same pattern with residential and commercial lower in August through October, again, due to no heat waves in 2021. And then the last group of these slides is our load shape. This shows the shape of our load in 2019 in blue, in 2020 in orange, and in 2021 in gray. And our load in 2021 is lower than the pre-COVID amounts that are demonstrated by the blue lines in 2019, and also still lower than 2020. Again, mainly the same thing due to the heat waves, but we are seeing a slight uptick now in the morning hours, and it's lower in the afternoon and late evening compared to last year. Next slide, please. So we have some, hopefully, good news to report to you. In the regulatory report that Jeremy and his team put out, and that was included in your packet, there were forecasts for PCIA and PG&E. So on November 8th, PG&E issued their November update of what they believe the rates will be for generation charges and also for the PCIA. And in summary, what we're seeing is a big drop in the PCIA and an increase in PG&E's rates. So both of these are the kind of movement that's good for us. And this change is mainly due to significantly increased prices in the wholesale power markets, namely to the tune of 66 to 69%. And so if the prices in the wholesale market are higher than the PCIA, which represents the out-of-market costs that bundled customers are experiencing, will be smaller, and therefore the PCIA will be smaller. Similarly, the rates will be higher though, because the cost to purchase power in the market will be higher, not only for PG&E, but also for us. But we are very well hedged, so we are able to usually avoid any really bad outcomes as prices get higher. So the first part of this chart says San Mateo County, which is vintage 2016 for PCIA. And you can see the 2021 rates for PG&E at 10.8 cents, and it's projected to go up to 14.8 cents for 2022, a change of 36%, so an increase in generation rates of 36%. For the PCIA, our system average rate right now is 4.6 cents, and it's projected to go down to 1.15 cents, or a 75% decrease in the PCIA. So when you, and then we calculate the headroom, which is basically what's the rate that we can charge, and it's calculated as PG&E's generation rate times 95%, which accounts for our 5% discount. And then we subtract out the PCIA. The number shown here does not have the franchise fee surcharge subtracted out, but it's a very small amount. So basically what we're seeing in 2021 is that our headroom is about 5.7 cents per kilowatt hour. And that's going to rise to 12.9 cents, or almost 13 cents per kilowatt hour, almost 7 cents per kilowatt hour more in 2022. So that gives us a lot more room in our procurement. As you know, for this last fiscal year, we had a slight net loss in our net position, but with this way increased headroom, we'll more than make that up in 2022. And then the bottom chart is the Los Banos rates. So the 2021 rates, I mean, we're not there right now, but this is what customers in Los Banos are seeing. They're being charged 10.8 cents per kilowatt hour. In 2022, the PG&E rate would be 14.8 cents. And the PCIA is different in Los Banos because it's vintage 2021, which means the out-of-market contracts that are included in that vintage are different than the ones that are included in the vintage for San Mateo County. So the PCIA is higher in Los Banos. It'll be about close to 3 cents. And the headroom there, as far as what the rate would be for PG&E for us, is about 11 cents. So the PCE rate for Los Banos will be around 11 cents. The PCE rate for San Mateo County will be 12.9 cents approximately. But altogether, it will still be the same because we take our rate plus the PCIA, and the overall rate that all of our customers pay will be the same. So we actually won't know what the final rates PG&E will charge until they actually publish the rates on January 1st. But it looks like we won't be squeezed in 2022 like we were in 2021. We will be recalculating our budget projections once we get these final rates from PG&E on January 1st. But it's looking like we'll have a positive contribution to net position with this significant change in PG&E rates and the PCIA. So happy to, it looks like there are some questions. Happy to answer questions about this, and then I'm done.
Pradeep.
Dan, just a short question that this increasing cost of energy for PG&E, it would also reflect an increase in the cost for our energy, which is not hedged for 2022. Am I right?
Yeah, but we are, we have a process where we regularly go out for hedge purchases so that we are not exposed to high market prices. So for the next year, we're, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think for Q1 of 2022, we're 100% hedged. For Q2, we may be not quite 100% hedged. But when we look at how these prices are going, we're very well protected this year as market prices went up. And they're going up because natural gas prices are going up. That's what the wholesale market prices are tracked to. So yeah, we feel pretty comfortable that we don't have a lot of exposure to the market.
Thank you.
So Jan, just a clarification so these rate changes would go into effect in January. So they will impact our current fiscal year because obviously whatever 6 months of that year will be a different rate. And is it your projection that we had projected a loss for this fiscal year? Is it your projection that it looks like these will negate that and we won't have a loss?
Yes. We haven't run all the numbers yet. We did this a lot last year. Every time PG&E changed the rates, we ran the numbers, and it kind of drove us crazy.
Yeah.
So we haven't been doing this year just for our mental health.
Yeah.
But because of the very large change here, we are predicting that we will not have a loss for FY22, even though these rates will only be effective for 5 to 5.5 months of FY22. We won't be able to change our rates exactly on January 1, although next month, Leslie will be coming to you with asking for approval for us to modify our rates as quickly as we can once PG&E's rates are finalized. So we may have more information at that time in December and have a better projection of where things might be.
Right. Thank you. Are there any other questions? I don't see anyone else with a hand up. Okay.
Okay, great. Next slide, please. So this is just to let you know when our meetings are. Again, in December, everything's moved back a week due to the holidays. So the Citizens Advisory Committee will be meeting on December 2nd, Executive Committee December 6th. We'll have a special Executive Committee on December 16th, right before, and Audit and Finance right before the Board of Directors meeting in order to pass the AB 361 requirement to continue to have remote meetings. And then we'll see you at the next Board of Directors meeting on December 16th. And that's all that I have.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the Citizens Advisory Committee report. And I think that Morgan will provide that.
Yes, thank you, Chair DeGolia. Hi, everyone. This is Morgan. So as you all know, Ray Larios has resigned as CAC chair, and we're super grateful for his service and wish him well in the Foreign Service. And I'll be taking over as CAC chair starting in January. So I just want to reiterate, if any of you want to connect with me about ways the CAC and the board can work better together, please let me know. I just have a couple points to share from our most recent CAC meeting. The CAC is very interested in the managed charging pilot, and members wanted to emphasize the importance of capturing driver demographics to understand energy equity for EVs. And there was also interest in capacity for the next phase beyond the pilot. The second point I wanted to raise was that we really appreciated the DEAI update from Shana, and CAC members thought the focus was mainly on the workforce and vendor components, which are super important. But CAC members also wanted to emphasize the importance of designing programs focused on equity and disadvantaged communities, and that this was part of the fundamental spirit of the initial CAC recommendation. So those were the two main points I wanted to share, and thank you for the time.
Okay, are there any questions from anyone? All right, is there any public comment on this? Okay, I don't see any questions. I don't see any public comment. Next item on the agenda relates to the draft program plan for the CPUC market access program. Is that Jan or Raphael who's going to introduce that?
Thank you, directors.
Raphael will
Yes.
be talking about it.
Thank you, directors, for your time. Let me bring up the slides. And I'm pleased to bring this opportunity to the board. This is something that moved fairly quickly, and we are seeking to respond to an opportunity developed by the CPUC. The core of this is really to submit a plan which has to be approved by the PUC, and if it is approved, would enable us to run a load shaping program, where a load shaping program means we're trying to match supply of renewables and the demand by adjusting the demand side. And to do that in a way where our expenses would be fully recouped from the California Public Utilities Commission using existing public purpose funds. So our intention here is to, with board approval, to submit this to the PUC for that purpose. Please excuse me, I'm going to talk through some procedural and some technical aspects of the program, which are a little bit unusual. So of course, I'll take questions, but please bear with me with some of the details here. The first thing is that as we look at our program portfolio, and this is a slightly updated diagram that you've seen before, we of course have buildings and transportation, which you hear from us on a regular basis, and then of course our distributed resources, which in previous diagrams was described as resilience, but really better described as distributed resources. And we have always had the intention to begin to investigate virtual power plant type strategies. Some of you are familiar with that term. Essentially, that term describes looking at our use of energy and making sure that we are influencing how it's used to provide grid services. And in this case, again, to try to align our demand with supply, and importantly, also to avoid reliability problems such as the blackouts that we experienced last year in August. So the market access program, or also what's commonly described as a flex market program, is a market-driven program. And what I mean by that is it differs from the typical incentive programs where somebody installs something and you get an incentive based on that installation. This program actually will pay out based on demonstrated performance, and I'll talk through what that means in a moment. We do that by identifying a price point that we'll pay to service providers based on performance that they deliver. And we use a measurement technique that draws on meter data to do so. And as I noted earlier, our primary objective is to ensure grid reliability through peak load reduction, but also to help align renewable supply with demand. And we have some metrics, of course, here in terms of what we're hoping to get out of the program. Here's some more detail about how the program works. As I mentioned, this differs from a typical program where somebody installs, let's say, a light bulb or a more efficient air conditioning system, and then you pay out based on what was done. This fundamentally operates in a different model. The marketplace establishes essentially a price register, and load-serving entities like Peninsula Clean Energy, other CCAs, potentially other providers, including the utilities, can put prices on this price register for how much they will pay for X megawatts reduction in peak load or X megawatt hours of increased efficiency. And then service providers that operate in our territory can subscribe to a given program and commit to delivering a certain amount of energy efficiency or peak load reduction. And they operate their programs out in the market. And that could mean specialists like here, ClearResult is a large energy services company. They have a very strong presence, for example, in supermarkets. And they may go out to supermarkets and do load reduction programs with supermarkets. And other providers like OhmConnect specialize in residential programs. As part of their program work, then we gather the data, our advanced metering data that comes back to us. And that's run through a sophisticated algorithm. And that algorithm has been developed, which is an open source algorithm developed by a company called Recurve that would measure the actual impact that's been delivered by that particular service provider. There's some complexity here in that they actually compare what was done against what was expected. So there's what's known as a counterfactual, and that counterfactual is based in part on what other similar buildings, if you will, have done without any programs, or installations of any efficiency or load shaping measures. Then based on that measured performance, we pay the provider. So whether it's ClearResult, OhmConnect, or one of these other providers, we pay them based on actual measured results. Now, it turns out that we have been investigating this model for quite some time. Two of our peer agencies, MCE and East Bay, are already piloting this as a means to increase efficiency and also load shaping. And we have been in discussions with Recurve for well over a year to try to understand their model, get comfortable with it. And through that process, in the middle of our discussions with Recurve, we learned that Calpine, our back-end billing and meter data provider, has formally partnered with Recurve to streamline the service and make it available to many agencies in a much simpler manner. And the Power Resources team was already investigating what sort of approach might be taken to pricing the resources that we want to gain from through this platform. Now, in addition to that, parallel to our activities, the California Public Utilities Commission has had a proceeding in relation to summer reliability. And the concerns here have been that with increased extreme weather due to climate change and the drought in particular has resulted in a reduction in hydropower. And as a consequence, that has actually created issues with regards to potential statewide grid reliability for a variety of reasons. And a number, in fact, the governor made an emergency declaration proclamation on this to expedite a number of measures to advance reliability, and the CPUC's proceeding has been part of that. And on October 29th, the Public Utilities Commission issued a proposed decision that to establish a $150 million program that they described as a market access program, which is essentially the flex market. So this has created a short notice opportunity for us to administer such a program. And again, the intention is we were going to do this program anyway, but now we have the opportunity to be reimbursed for our expenses. And there are a number of requirements to become eligible for administering such a program. And the program plan is the key first step. A little more detail here on how the program would work. As I noted, it allows setting a value for peak reductions. There are a variety of technical elements associated with this that I can go into in questions, but essentially the PUC has directed that these market access programs provide very substantial incentives during the peak hours to ensure that we're getting significant reductions, again, with the intention of ensuring summer reliability. So the request to the board here is for approval of the plan. As I note here, we are anticipating that if the PUC approves our plan, PCE would be entitled to somewhere between $2 and $5 million for administration of the plan. All the costs, including the incentives going to service providers, would be reimbursed by the Public Utilities Commission. And with that, I'll turn it back to the chair for questions and discussion. Director DeGolia, you may be on mute.
Yep, thank you. Okay, so that's a brief overview. Maybe you could just start, Raphael, by explaining to the board what our costs would be. What you're asking the board to approve the program plan. It's not 100% clear exactly what the program plan is because you're just given a very high level description, and this is the first time we've heard about it.
Yes, and I apologize for that. And again, this is due to short notice situation with the Public Utilities Commission. So there would be no direct costs to PCE, either for administration costs or for the incentives that would be paid out, because the program would be fully reimbursed by the Public Utilities Commission.
So basically, this is to authorize an application to the CPUC to become the administrator for the program?
That's correct.
And if we don't get approved for that, then we wouldn't be doing the program at this time.
That's right. There's still the option that we could consider doing the program on our own. There are various reasons why that would be challenging in the context of a statewide program. But at this point, our expectation is that we would have this approved by the Public Utilities Commission.
Okay, I've got a number of questions, and members of the board, please think about this and don't hesitate to raise your hand with any questions that you may have. Pradeep. You're muted, Pradeep. In fact, you just disappeared.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Oh, okay,
Can you hear
great.
me?
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Rick. Raphael, my question was that the program as it is designed today, as you understand it, is the program defined in the same fashion for IOUs like PG&E with their T&D and resources, and as well as for CCAs, or there's a difference between the programs as it is spelled out?
So the market access program that the PUC has proposed would put CCAs on the same footing with investor-owned utilities in terms of how the program would operate, which means that we would put price points that reflect all costs, including transmission and distribution costs, benefits, and we would be reimbursed. And so we would be paying out on that basis to the service providers, and then we would be fully reimbursed by the Public Utilities Commission.
So the savings that are attributed to transmission distribution bottlenecks, they would be also part of the price point that is set by PCE?
That's correct. If we are approved by the Public Utilities Commission, if we tried to do this on our own, then we would not be in a situation where we could pay out based on those benefits.
So in the other words, Raphael, I'm just trying to reiterate what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, is that our price points, if we were going to do it by ourselves, would only reflect the energy or peak demand issues.
Exactly.
And not transmission distribution, which will add additional benefits. And
That's
therefore,
exactly right.
PG&E market points, market price will be higher, than what we could offer. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. We would likely not be competitive against an investor-owned utility program if we were not part of the CPUC program.
And would this price points, if we go into this program, would they be independently managed by PCE, or we'll have to get approval from PUC or PG&E?
Well, the PUC has put in requirements around how the price points are set. We would have some flexibility, but it will be based on certain cost effectiveness metrics that are defined by the PUC. So we will have some limited control.
Yes, I understand that. I'll have to look into it a little bit more closely to ask any further questions, but at this time, I would love to know a little bit more about it. Thank you.
Okay, next question is from Donna.
So mine's pretty simple. Is there any reason that we wouldn't do this, or any risk associated with this that we should understand?
Well, there will be some staff overhead. We anticipate that will be modest. We do have to execute a contract with Calpine. We're already quite a ways down that road in understanding the contract. And then the administration of the program itself is a much lower overhead program to administer than a conventional program. And much of the administration actually happens through Calpine and Recurve through this meter data analysis. We would be receiving quite a bit of project data, which is actually a big plus for us to know what's actually happening in buildings. And we do anticipate there will be some staff effort to make sure that the program is running properly, submit reports to the Public Utilities Commission, and making sure all the data, is being understood. But we see substantial advantages to participating in terms of being the market actor, if you will, to bring this to our service territory and potentially integrate it with other objectives that we have and have an ongoing program that would be funded through public purpose funds.
Okay, Rick Bonilla.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So just to clarify, I mean, it sounds great. In fact, it sounds almost too good to be true. But let me just ask about the underlying premise. Is it that we save money by, instead of buying and providing energy, by working with users to reduce the demand? And it's cheaper to pay them to reduce their demand than it is to buy and provide energy. Is that the case?
On the economics are a little complicated because it may vary depending on exactly the time frame and what's going on in the market. So I can't say with certainty that every project at every hour would actually result in a economic benefit to us. What we do know is that on the whole, that summer peak is when the exorbitant wholesale costs are and the reliability problems are. And of course, the worst thing is if there's a blackout. So avoiding that is the PUC's objective, and it is probable, but again, this is essentially a pilot for us to learn, what the economics actually will be for us. But on the whole, our suspicion is, for the worst kind of extreme weather events, we will save money.
Okay, good. And then the data that we gain also by going through the process is also valuable to us. Okay, so thank you very much, Rafael. It sounds good to me. I like it.
Okay, Laura.
Thank you, Chair DeGolia. So Rafael, I appreciate this opportunity to check in with you about this. I read the packet and I heard your presentation, and I have to admit, I'm a little unclear. So I get the objective, which is to reduce, brownouts and that type of thing. I'm still kind of back at what happens, and having had a conversation with Bill Chang last year around this time when the CAISO, called it in and that was coming. And so what I'm struggling to understand here is, what is exactly this model? So are we kind of buying in advance at a set price energy that comes from a certain set of producers that are, different than what we're currently relying on? Help me understand kind of the, where is the energy coming from? Where is it going? Are we trying to drive down demand like Rick said, or are we trying to meet demand? Are we trying to do both? And if so, what's the flow of?
Sure.
How does this?
And I apologize not to have been clearer. The entirety of this program is intended to reduce demand at those time periods where we have trouble meeting the demand. And that is in the evening peak, where solar production declines and demand is going up, and all the natural gas plants have to ramp up. And under extreme weather conditions, many problems occur. Power plants may not be available, transmission gets very congested and overheated. And there are many factors that can result in basically not being able to meet demand in those extreme weather conditions. And there is, so this program is very specifically oriented towards reducing the demand in those worst timeframes to help make sure that we don't have blackouts.
Okay, and a follow-up question, and you do that by what mechanism?
So the mechanism is that, in simple terms, we'll say something like, we will give $30 a megawatt hour. Don't quote me on the number, but just as an example, to anybody who reduces demand in those critical hours. And so the service providers, these large companies that provide energy services, then go out to their customers, maybe find new customers, and they do things like they might put in battery storage, or they might install more efficient equipment, or other measures like that. And then after they've demonstrated the performance, because we see the meter data and how that's changed, then we pay them based on what actually happened.
Okay, with effectively these funds that will be reimbursed with.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your walking me through that.
So Raphael, just to clarify it, it sounds like we're not paying the quoted price to the customer. We're entering into a contractual arrangement with third parties such as Ohm Connect or the various other parties that you put up on your screen. And those parties are going out to the customer base to structure demand reduction, and they're offering whatever they might offer to incentivize our customers, no doubt along with other LSC customers, to reduce their demand in certain time periods that the PUC or CAISO publishes as the targeted time periods. And we are quoting a price to pay to those third parties within our territory. Is that right?
That's correct.
And what we are paying to those third parties is fully covered by the PUC.
That's correct.
Funds?
Yes.
And are our internal administrative expenses covered?
We have not been planning on submitting costs associated with our staff time, and but all other costs, administrative costs, and we would enter into a contract with Calpine. There's a percentage that we pay them for the services, and that flows down to Recurve, which is a sub-provider, if you will. All of those costs would be fully reimbursed by the PUC.
Okay, so two additional questions. And the way that it's determined what is paid to the third parties for the resulting demand reduction that they've arranged for with our customers is based on smart meter data. Is that right?
That's correct.
That's smart meter data that we don't currently have access to, right?
Well, we do today through Calpine. We do have access to meter data.
Okay, so is there no change with the smart meter data with respect to us? Because I've thought that PG&E owns the smart meters and they get the real-time data, and we get it at some, time lag. So we don't get real-time data.
Yeah. So there is still a time lag, but that's built into the program. We don't report out and do those calculations until several months after. Actually, we have to have demonstrated performance, and we use the data that we do get from PG&E to Calpine to make those calculations.
Okay, so my final question, in reading through the staff report, in the section under discussion, there was this statement, and I think I understand it better from your presentation, but I just want to ask it because it jumped out at me. It's the sentence that says, that if PCE launched a flex market on its own, it would be uncompetitive with one launched by PG&E. Because PCE would not be able to offer attractive price point to energy companies. And by energy companies, do you mean those third parties that you put up on the screen?
Yes, and I probably should have made that a little clearer, but I'm referring to companies like Ohm Connect and Clear Result.
Okay. And that's if we were to do it on our own rather than to be under the program that the PUC is offering.
Exactly.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the board? Pradeep.
One more question, Raphael. These energy companies that like Bright Power or Clear Result, do they install their energy or demand saving measures permanently, or they are offering incentives for customers to do their own thing in the time of crisis temporarily, or is it a permanent installation like you're talking about, like more efficient air conditioners or postponing some of the electrical charges, electrical vehicle charges, etc. So, or could they use alternate fuels, local fuels, such as natural gas, to provide that demand that they might subtract from the meter demand? Just a question.
Yes, so I'm hesitating because the platform, this marketplace, this flex market platform, can be used in multiple ways. And it can be event driven or look for permanent load shape changes. So it's a question of program design. In the case of what the PUC is looking for, is they're looking for more permanent actions. This is not part of like a demand response style program as it's been structured by the Public Utilities Commission. Now, once we put it in place, looking into the future, we could have a mix, and there's, we would have to devise a strategy around, what we're really after and what we put price points on. But the methodology is there to do both, behavioral and, fixed installations. But for right now, we're really looking at permanent load shift.
Thank you.
Jeff.
Thanks. So the benefit to the third party is this total system benefit defined established by the CPUC. How does that relate? But Recurve's kind of Recurve's secret sauce, Matt Golden's holy grail, has been to determine that total system benefit. So is the CPUC sort of delegating, just taking Recurve's sort of and what Matt and Recurve have discovered about those system benefits and the benefits of efficiency at certain times, and using that as their total system benefit, or are there two different metrics there?
So the CPUC has put in place a definition for total system benefit. And forgive me, I'm not steeped in the PUC metrics yet. So I don't know, to what degree that PUC defined total system benefits metric, how closely it aligns to what Recurve has been advocating. But this program, the CPUC's program, does have requirements to map to the CPUC's defined total system benefits.
Okay. And Chair Dooley, I have comments, but I thought I was thinking we were going to have another round of discussion after public comment. Is that?
Yeah, that's
correct, or do you
fine.
want? Okay, then I'll wait.
Up to you. If you want to make your comments now, you're welcome to. It may generate some additional questions.
Yeah. Well, this is a critical strategic investment for us. I would support this even without the CPUC reimbursement, because being part of this program we touched on this at the board retreat in September. You know, this being able to reshape our load to meet our generation profile is actually a really critical part of becoming 24/7, 365 greenhouse gas free. So, you know, the fact that this, I mean, I've been talking with Raphael a little bit about this since I think summertime. So just the fact that that first recurve is going forward with this. So it's great to hear that CPUC has actually moved as quickly as they've moved on this, which is kind of amazing. So I fully support this. I worked for Recurve 12 years ago. Know some of the people and know that the pain points within this particular industry space, and the Recurve's doing amazing work, and the CPUC is apparently recognizing that now. So this is an incredible opportunity for us. And you know, some of the details are confusing. I'll be the first to admit that I mean, we could spend an hour trying to explain every last nuance of how this works. And there are people who have spent their whole careers doing this and figuring out how to do this correctly to do exactly the kind of benefit that we are now looking at in terms of removing both sort of saving the system, but also actually removing a lot of price volatility. And one of our biggest risks is actually not the price we pay, but the volatility at certain times when we're acquiring wholesale power at peak times. So like I said, this is, I'm really excited about this, and I'm pleased to see it moving forward. Thanks.
Raphael, could you please comment on what you know that the East Bay and MCE have experienced in the course of this? Have they experienced a benefit, or is it just too new to really for them to publish their experience? And that's one question. The second question is, in general, the PUC hasn't done things that objectively diversify control from the IOUs. And to open this up to the CCAs, which they appear to be doing, can you just comment on that? Are they doing that? Why are they doing that? And I often have distrusted the CPUC because how they have not worked in our interests, but it sounds like this may be a change.
Yes, on the first question, so MCE and East Bay are still in early days. MCE is a little farther along. They have 2 months of July and August where they've received data for those months. There wasn't that much in July. I had hoped to get their August results, but have not gotten it yet. What they are saying, though, is that they are starting to see benefits in terms of actual outcomes. And importantly, that the service providers, it's expanding the pool of service providers. And the reason that is it is far easier to participate in this structure than in conventional IOU style programs for demand response and energy efficiency, which require an enormous amount of overhead to, you know, measure what's going on in the building and report back. And that reporting is extremely cumbersome. Whereas here, to put it in simple terms, they install something and the meter analysis does the work. So it's a huge gain for the service providers to participate here. And that means that more service providers are willing to participate and bring more grid benefits as a result. And so that's one of the big pluses that MCE is reporting from their program. You know, in terms of what the price points yield is, and I think that's still something that we're in a learning phase on. So that's number one. With regards to the PUC, it's pretty clear that what has happened is that the CCAs, MCE and East Bay, did this first. And they started to demonstrate that this could work. And the PUC is under pressure to ensure grid reliability. And this is a wholly new tool that has a lot of potential. It's still essentially a pilot, but it has a lot of potential. And given that CCAs were already doing it, it would be a little awkward for them to say that CCAs couldn't do it because they were already doing it. Now, for us, what's a little bit awkward is that the proposed decision from the PUC has stated that existing administrators of PUC programs are eligible to participate. And we're submitting this program to become eligible. And then we would subsequently also apply for this market access program. So there are a couple of hoops that we're trying to go through. And part of the reason that we're trying to rush on this is to get that initial approval, which would authorize us to then apply to the main program.
Great, thank you. Pradeep, do you have your hand up again? Or did you just not take it down? You're muted.
Thank you.
Okay. So is there any public comment on this item? If there is, you can raise your hand under reactions, or you can just speak out and one of us will hear you. I don't see any public comment at this time. I don't see any other questions or comments from members of the board. This is an action item. So we need a motion to approve making this application to the PUC. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I will move to approve.
Okay.
I would second.
Okay, thank you.
San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County, Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont,
Yes.
Brisbane, Burlingame,
Yes.
Colma, Daly City,
Yes.
East Palo Alto, Foster City,
Yes.
Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos,
Yes.
Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Yes.
Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley,
Yes.
Redwood City, San Bruno, San Carlos,
Yes.
San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco, Woodside. The motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Great. Okay, the next item on the agenda involves the Gonzaga Ridge Wind Farm PPA agreement and a resolution to delegate authority to enter into that agreement. I think Chelsea is going to present this.
Yes, good evening, board members. As many of you recall from the last board meeting, we brought before you the Gonzaga Ridge Wind project that we are very excited about. Since the board meeting, there has been a few revisions to the contract. So tonight we're bringing to you this agreement again to approve those revisions. The recommendation remains the same, that the power term will be for 15 years with a commencement date on or about October 31st, 2024, and in an amount not to exceed $204 million. Next slide. So here is a summary of the board authorization. So as you recall, the board authorized the PPA with Gonzaga Ridge Wind on October 28th, so at the last board meeting. However, the PCE CEO's execution of the PPA was contingent upon the approval from the board of Scout Clean Energy, who is the developer of Gonzaga. Scout's board did not approve the PPA due to some concerns that they felt had remained unresolved that we learned of after the board meeting last month. However, we did definitely want to highlight that we prefer to bring PPAs to the board after the developer has confirmed their approval. However, in October, the negotiations did go up towards the board meeting, and we received late notice from Scout that they were unable to hold their board meeting prior to PCEs in October. However, we have worked with them since the last board meeting on these revised changes, and we have received Scouts board approval. So there is no question as to whether or not they can move forward. They have confirmed that they are willing and ready to move forward. Next slide. Here are some of the areas of concern that originally left Scout a little bit worried about the contract, but we have resolved these. So the first being that due to recent inflation and price spikes in commodities and goods, they were concerned that they would be required to purchase major equipment in an inflated market, which could adversely impact the economics of this project. So we worked with Scout to reassess the market at a little bit of a later date, using very defined and objective terms into measuring this. And this will be closer to when Scout will be required to make many of their procurement decisions. So Scout will have roughly 6 months. After that point, the PPA remains enforced and the terms to progress the project through commercial operation become binding. Next slide. These are some additional notes that we wanted to highlight. All information that we presented to you at the last board meeting and that we communicated in the October board memo remains the same. These revisions primarily impact a very short time frame after execution of the PPA. All terms for construction, commercial operation, and when the actual deliveries commence have remained the same. Staff has not published a revised redacted version of the PPA since the language staff negotiated was previously redacted in the October board packet. We wanted to mention that these changes are sensitive to staff because they contain certain information that could influence future PPA negotiations, which we want to be careful of. Staff is confident that these changes do not adversely impact Peninsula Clean Energy. And we also wanted to highlight that these terms are very unique to this project specifically, and just given the current state of the market. I'm sure many of you are well aware that we're in a post-pandemic environment and that we are faced with some present day challenges with supply chain issues. And we have seen very high volatility for commodities. And so that's the main reason why we're bringing this back to you tonight. So we can go to the next slide. Just wanted to remind you of how it fits into our strategic plan. It meets PCE's priority 1. It meets the power resources goal number 1 to secure sufficient low-cost clean sources of electricity. It meets objective A for low cost and stable power, and objective B to be 100% carbon-free by 2025 on a 24/7 basis. Go to the next slide. So again, this is just a recap of our recommendation. And then we can go to the last slide, and I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Okay. Thank you, Chelsea.
Yes.
Are there any questions? I think Rick Bonilla has a question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just one question. When this was presented at the last meeting, there was clear language about the labor conditions. It said there was going to be a craft labor agreement and so forth. Those conditions have not changed?
That is correct. That has not changed.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from anyone on the board? Pradeep.
One question. The way I understood this share of this project was less than 100%. There was another buyer on that project. Do those changes impact the whole project or just our share?
It is, they are looking at the viability of the entire project, and you're right, we're just taking a share of the entire project. So they're going to be, looking at the next several months, and the other project is actually a little bit later in their interconnection process. So that's, yeah, they're taking all of that into account.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Laura.
Just a quick question, or one comment and question. So I totally appreciate the fact that we're in a really volatile market. Just gas prices, for example, have gone up, markedly in the last couple of weeks. And the 60 Minutes report on the shipping conditions and container backup is It's just really remarkable. What size of their portfolio does this deal make up? Do we have a sense of that?
Yeah, so we are contracting for 76 megawatts. The total capacity that they'd like to achieve is about like 190-ish megawatts.
Okay, so PCE as a customer though, we're going to be acquiring the majority of their output. Is that
it's a little less than half.
Okay. Okay, so I just would want to make sure that, you know, if the economic uncertainty continues, right, we still have a viable partner in this. So I'll just leave it at that.
Just to follow up on that, Chelsea, have they sold the other, do they have another off-taker yet?
I don't think it's a public thing. So I can't really say. They haven't told me specifically, but yeah, I know that they're looking to find an off-taker if they haven't already.
And does that put any risk on us?
They're really, you know, the commodities price spikes, the inflation, everything that they're seeing, it really comes down to economies of scale, and that's what they've communicated to us. So we've been trying, you know, since the last board meeting to find, you know, a way to work with them. And we understand, you know, that they have a lot of concerns that are coming ahead of them. So that's why we negotiated like, okay, you know, you have 6 months to take a look at the market. We put in place a mechanism to take a look at that. But after that 6-month point, they're binded to the contract and they have to, you know, construct the facility, bring it online, and then, you know, go from there. So
they could walk away within the 6-month period, is that correct?
potentially. There are certain mechanisms that they have to meet in order to do that. We won't just let them walk away. But given the kind of just interesting environment that we're in and the unique market conditions, that's essentially the way forward right now.
Okay. Donna.
Thank you, Chelsea. Are you seeing this same pattern of response from other vendors? This concern about inflation and cost increases, supply chain, and their ability to deliver and meet their obligations?
Yeah, I'd say that we're probably seeing it across the board. We have heard of other wind projects kind of reconsidering or stalling plans, just given these price shocks that we're seeing in the market. And I think the same goes for solar too.
Yeah, I would imagine. So, not for necessarily here today, but it would be interesting to understand the sort of financial, you know, wherewithal of some of these organizations. In other words, you know, are they worried about doing these because if they have one bad investment, they're going to be out of business? And, you know, I assume we look at that when we do our due diligence, like what their credit ratings are and how well they're financed and capitalized, so we don't end up in, because we could force them to do it, and if they can't do it and they can't deliver it, they can't do it. Or we can sue them, but you know, then we can't do it. So I really appreciate, and I don't know how much Andy or his team or our finance department gets involved in looking at those, you know, sort of not the viability of the project, but the viability of the contractor. And I'm sure Jan's very, very involved in it, but this is a really interesting observation, and I really appreciate your transparency around it, because I think these are the kind of things that the board really has to understand and know.
And I will add that we do definitely look into the financial viability of the company. We looked into Scout and we are comfortable with them, and they have experience. They have some wind projects that are online, so they do have the experience that makes us comfortable. But I do think, I guess to the point, any developer right now, regardless of their financial standings or, you know, can they put the project directly on their books, I think everyone's concerned about just what the market's going to do in the next couple months. Oh, Rick, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm muted. Let me just make sure that there is no public comment on this matter. I don't see anyone with a hand up. And I don't hear anyone, so I'm assuming there's no public comment. And I don't see any further questions from the board. We need a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve as recommended by the staff. I don't know if you need anything more specific, but
I would second.
or I think Julia was maybe seconding.
Go ahead.
You got preempted, Rick. Julia's the second. Okay, could we please do a roll call?
Definitely. San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County, Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont,
Yes.
Brisbane, Burlingame,
Yes.
Colma, Daly City,
Yes.
East Palo Alto, Foster City,
Yes.
Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos,
Yes.
Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Yes.
Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley,
Yes.
Redwood City, San Bruno, San Carlos,
Yes.
San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco, and Woodside. The motion passes.
Okay, thank you. I think this is just one of the examples of doing business and in this particular environment. It's a challenge. Hopefully there'll be, I'm sure there'll be other off takers as the market improves, but there's an issue. So I think we need to do this. I'm glad we did it. Okay, the next item on the agenda is approval of the 2022 Board of Directors schedule of meetings.
So I will actually be taking this one. I'm coming out from behind the scenes. Next slide, please. So our 2022 Board of Director meeting schedule is posted here. These dates are all pretty similar, but you'll notice the ones where the time is in bold. There will be a couple extra meetings in 2022 in order to be compliant with AB 361 to make sure that we can continue having virtual meetings if so needed. Also, something to note, in September, we are proposing to have the retreat on a Thursday instead of Saturday. And so starting the meeting an hour earlier than normal time and still running the same 4 hours, but thinking that would work a little bit better for everyone's schedules and other events within the community. Otherwise, I think this is a pretty standard schedule and open to any questions or comments. Or motions.
Yeah, I need a motion to approve.
So moved, Los Banos.
Second.
And
San
second
Carlos.
is San Carlos. Okay, thank you. And Nellie, you aren't exactly behind the scenes.
Thank you. Okay. San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County, Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont,
Yes.
Brisbane, Burlingame,
Yes.
thank you, Colma, Daly City,
Yes.
East Palo Alto, Foster City,
Yes.
Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos,
Yes.
Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Yes.
Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley,
Yes.
Redwood City, San Bruno, San Carlos, perhaps on mute, circle back, San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco, Woodside, and San Carlos.
Yes.
Thank you so much. The motion passes.
Okay, so that concludes the agenda other than board member reports. And I'm looking for any board. Donna has a report.
Thank you very much, Rick. So I just thought this was a fun thing to report out. On Monday, the Peninsula Family Services had one of their annual luncheons with their one of their auxiliaries. And the fund in need was Drive Forward, was a partnership with our program. And they had a guest speaker there who was a participant, and she sent me a beautiful email afterwards because we chatted about her experience with the program and the fact that Peninsula Clean Energy has been a partner in it. And I just wanted to read you her email she sent me. I'll send this to you, Jan, along with a really nice picture of her with her daughter. So maybe we can include it in the e-news. But she says, "My name is Fabiola Pedersen, and I really appreciate the $4,000 grant to make one of the best decisions of my life. I bought a plug-in car, Chevrolet Volt, and I am very happy with it. Driving an electric car is great, no noise, very economical, and great for the planet. I do not have the cable to charge at home yet, but there are a lot of stations close to my job in Half Moon Bay. I want to thank Peninsula Clean Energy so very much for this opportunity." And she told me that she had her daughter there, and she said that it's made all the difference in the world for her to be able to hold the job down and get her daughter in Half Moon Bay to Half Moon Bay High School and get her there on time. She's a single mom with a daughter. And it was quite moving and really wonderful. And I just think sometimes when we hear these personal stories about the impact that we're having on people's lives, it really makes everyone understand why we all come to this job every Thursday night and do the hard work, as well as our staff.
Great. Okay, Tom.
Thanks. I wanted to note, I heard it on NPR this morning, agrivoltaics. I think the general assumption is when a piece of farmland or any piece of land is put into a solar farm, it's essentially, that's what it gets used for. But in Colorado, they showed their fields, they're growing crops right under the shade of the solar farm. And a lot of the crops do very, very well, particularly in the arid countries where the sun is so hot. The solar panels, the shading is actually a benefit to the crops. So being over here in an agricultural area, I thought that was pretty exciting stuff as we go, reaching out for more supplies and more power. And I thought it was pretty exciting to hear that this morning.
I would think that would apply to feedlots as well.
Oh, yes, definitely protect the cattle out here in the valley because our summers are brutally hot.
Yeah. Okay, are there any other reports? Okay, I don't see anybody.
I think I see Harvey's hand is up, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
great.
my flag didn't work. I'm sorry.
That's because it's so dark there, Harvey.
Yeah. Saving electricity. Jan said that our building electrification meeting on Tuesday was robust, which is an understatement. We had 51 people comment, and the amount of misinformation about PCE was amazing to me, and I just thought it should be become part of the record. People were saying things like, the main reason that we were pushing for building electrification was that PCE could make money on it. Then there was a lot of discussion about the fact that if we used more electricity, that would use a lot more natural gas, and what's the point of that? So most of the people from Half Moon Bay who commented were really upset about the cost of the proposed burnout part of the ordinance, which we had to unfortunately scotch. There were a lot of intelligent comments from people from over the hill, from Menlo Spark, from Actura, but I think that it was counterproductive because the local people thought that we were being invaded by people who had no business dealing with our local requirements. I don't know what the solution is. I just thought you should be aware that there's an incredible amount of misinformation, and we had to eliminate the part of the ordinance that would have required using when a gas-fired appliance burnt out, it would have to be replaced with an electrical one. That didn't end up in the ordinance that will be heard in December, which I think is a shame. I just wanted to report what the robust discussion was all about. Thank you.
Thanks, Harvey. Any other reports? Okay, thank you, everybody. We will see you in December if we don't see you at a subcommittee meeting before then.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye.
Thank you.
Night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, y'all.